Greetings, Internet! Hello, Facebook! Hello, YouTube! Welcome once again to another very special episode of My Cool Friends. We go live every Friday and Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If this is your first time joining us, first of all, hello! It's so nice to have you here. We go live on Facebook and YouTube on our channel, The Platinum Mastermind, where you can see all of our lovely previous episodes. We are coming up on our very special 1-year anniversary of doing this show. And you know what that means? I need to make up something special for the 1-year anniversary. Of course. But there was once a wise man who said that the great things come in threes. Well, clearly this man never met our guest today because these great things come in pairs of twos. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce our very, very special guest today. These brothers have formed their own organization called the BIZBROS, and they help people turn their content into a profit machine. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome, with homemade sound effects, the BIZBROS!
Yay!
Ben, what's up, man? Thank you for having us.
I love the homemade sound effects, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate having us here. It's a total honor. Considering us part of your cool friends. Dude,
yes.
We made it.
Thank you. We made it.
I officially knight you as one of the cool friends. You are now part of the tribe.
Let's
appreciate
go.
it. Is that how we
Is this
salute?
how we do it?
You will receive a virtual gift basket and an invite to the official Facebook group.
Boom.
Let's go. Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having us here today.
Absolutely. And without further ado, let's jump right into our interview today. I teased it a little bit in your introduction, but you guys have this, for our audio listeners, this beautiful piece of art behind you that just says content is profit. And whenever I talk about, what I do to air quote the normies, the people who they giggle, they I said nothing else. They giggle. They already know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Whenever I talk about what I do to the normies, they're like, "You have like YouTube, like that thing that 13-year-olds do." So how is it? How exactly does one turn creating content, videos, these things that we put out on the internet all the time? How can we actually turn that into profit, into cash flow for our businesses?
Great question. You'd like to start with the fire, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
I will.
You're not pulling back any punches, man.
This isn't a movie. We're starting right from the climax, and then we're going straight into all of the meat and potatoes.
I love it, man. I love it. You want to take this? You
Let's
want me to
do
take
it.
this?
Let's do it. So that is what we said to discover with the show in the first place, right? And there's many what we've seen is there's many ways to do it, but there's some elements in each other processes that everybody needs to have, and those are the things that we normally talk about, right? So when we first started chasing the entrepreneurship journey, we were first motivated, right, by the money, right? We had that greed of, I'm starting a business because I need money, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs kind of start there. So we can go into details after if you really like. But after a few adventures with stickers, T-shirts, different things that we tried, we landed on a social media marketing agency at the time, and we were marketing ourselves as the anti-marketing agency, right? It was like anybody that will have a conversation with us, they're like, what do you do? Oh, we're an anti-marketing agency. Oh, that's so cool. I am so frustrated with the one that I hired. Can you guys help me? Right. And that's where the conversation started. And we were the yes people. We were like, yeah, absolutely. We'll do it. And then we go back and research, how to actually do the things that we would say that we were going to do. And the cool thing is that sped up a lot of the learning process. We executed, we got incredible results, right? But at the same time, it created a nightmare operationally because there were so many processes, right? And at the time, we were not publishing at all. We were just going out and executing, right? So part of those things where we'll come out and we'll create a lot of content out of macro pieces. We'll come in and we'll record, for 4 hours, and then we'll create assets out of that, right? That's just part of the systems that people were, hiring us to do. And there was one episode where we were in this event, well, not an event, it was a meeting where we were pitching the service, part of the service, right? And these guys go like, that's super cool what you guys are doing with the clients, but where's your stuff? Where is your content? And at the time, we were not publishing anything. All our accounts were completely deleted because of the other things that we were trying before that were like, we thought they were not consistent, right? Nowadays, we're like, man, we wish we would have left that there because that's an incredible part of the story, right? But we decided to delete everything. Big mistake. Don't ever do it. And and people were like, I don't really believe you because you're not drinking from your own Kool-Aid. So that moment there was like, this is interesting, and this is the start of the journey on how we're actually going to turn our content into profit, right? So the first step for us was create consistency while publishing, right? And how did that look like? We decided that because of our capacity, and we talked about this on the publishing pyramid, and our resources, and we had to figure out our message at that point.
What's the publishing pyramid?
Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
So we decided to go as frictionless as possible, right? Because we didn't have really the time to edit. We didn't really have the time to set up or do that. And we just needed to execute consistently, every single day. So we decided to go Facebook Live for 45 days straight. And that's what the start of how we actually started turning the content into profit. So how do we actually do it is through different elements inside of the publishing pyramid.
Yeah. Good job. That was great.
That was good.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna add a little in there, right? A little bit more that maybe people can take action with as well, right? Because they're not gonna go back and start a sticker company just to get to content is profit, right?
Don't do that.
Just to add a little bit there, when we were, growing the business, I personally started indoctrinating myself a lot into Russell Brunson's content, right? And he says all the time, you got to publish. And then anybody else that you meet that is close to Russell, they say, you got to publish as well. But the question is, okay, well, I'm publishing now. How do I turn this into profit, right? Because a lot of people, do they have the ability to create content? Absolutely, 100%. It's actually very easy. The tools are out there to do it. So when we started asking that question, guess what? It turns out, number one, most people that create content, they just don't offer. They just don't make a public offer, right? They create the content and then it's like, okay, goodbye. See you next time. You need to assume that the person on the other side is not, and I say this in the best of ways. You got to assume the person on the other side is lazy and you need to tell them exactly what to do next, right? So that is an issue that we had, right? When we started creating content, there was no call to actions whatsoever, right? And guess what? The call to action can be, hey, yes, go into my newsletter, right? That is a very passive call to action. You build in your list, which is great. But where we wanted phone calls. We wanted, to build the relationships that are actually going to turn to profit, right? Those sales calls. So your call to action is, if you're having this problem, right, and you're looking for the solution that I can offer to you, just send me a message. Let's jump on a call. I would love to help you out, right? So those are the type of call to actions that we started doing during the 45 live, and that turned into conversations that eventually turned into deals, right? Now, as we progress, as we started the podcast, we started seeing, okay, can content make money by itself? Yes, 100%, right? there's people that have content right there, and I look at it, they have certain call to action, and then I go to their funnel, X, Y, and Z. But also, those are people usually that either have big audiences or they have resources like money, lots of money to spend on advertisement to drive traffic to their funnels. But what if we don't have those? What if we don't have, what if we cannot advertise? What if we don't have a big audience that we can leverage, right?
And there's a third element there that actually, after a conversation with Steve Sims and, people from Binary Media too, they already have established relationships that they can actually go out and talk to, right? So those three elements, I think they're really important.
Yeah. So the question then became, what if we don't have any of those, right? We didn't have an audience. We didn't have any of those partnerships, right? We didn't have the money to spend in ads to drive people to the funnel that we didn't have at the moment. And honestly, at this point right now in our business, we only have the need for a landing page and a thank you page. That's it. Everything else is our call to action to jump in a conversation with us. But then it becomes a game of, how do I get in front of more eyeballs, right? So in the podcasting game is, let me be a guest, right? Or let me use my content as a safety net, right? The safety net effect. What do you do when somebody reaches out to you for the very first time or somebody follows you? What is the first thing you do, Ben?
It's always that machine of like, oh, hey, like I got another person. This could be a possible like new deal. And so whenever someone follows me, I immediately like check out like, okay, where did this person come from?
So
does this person follow my demographic? Is this
my
ideal
content,
customer?
right?
Yeah. Say what?
So you're checking his content, right? You're checking what they're doing and all that stuff correctly. So that is a safety net right there. Because if you see, right, somebody starts following you and you check them out, right? That's some sort of outreach for some people in that way, right? Not just maybe just follow, whatever that we don't really believe in that. But if you are, establishing relationships, conversations, you're being proactive on your outreach to connect with more people. These people are gonna go and consume your content because they want to know, who is this person who is talking to me. And that is where the safety net effects happens. And guess what? The safety net allows you to do the 12 touch points that it takes to make a sale very quickly. So then you can transition those people to, hey, do you have this problem? I got the solution. Let's jump on a call, right? I'm pretty sure we could help you out. So again, yes, what most people see is the Russell Brunson level of turning content into profit, right? Which, again, obviously it works. That's why he teaches it so much. But there's people that don't have access to those resources at the moment. And some people got to start a little bit slower by dedicating the resource of time and effort into starting these conversations. But if you have no content, no safety net whatsoever, when people go check you out, they're going to be like, well, who's this guy? Zero rapport, zero trust, right? I mean, it has happened many times where I get a lot of people sliding in the DMs, and when you check them out, it's a spam account. They they have zero posts. They are following like 5,000 people, and I'm like, why am I gonna take the time to answer to you, right? Like, I don't trust anything you gotta say to me because there's nothing in there that proves that you're actually even a real person,
right?
So,
it feels like what you're describing is that like a lot of times in these like massive numbers of like 100 views or 1,000 views, we sometimes forget that all of those numbers are real people. And so in order to build this audience of real people, we need to have real connections.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, what you're describing with like the Russell Brunson methods, like, yes, all of those work, but unless we have that, unless we are able to do that metrics of like, already having a massive audience, having a foundation of real human connection is absolutely the way to go.
Absolutely.
I think, one of the hot topics is burnout too, right? Because people start focusing on the wrong things when we're first starting, right? Like I remember having a call with somebody and how when we asked them, what was your dream scenario today? Or, how do you want to, what's your dream scenario on content? They were like, we really want to be the Mr. Beast of real estate, right? And one of the questions were like, hey, do you have today $15,000 per video to give away.
Or do you have 24 hours to say Logan Paul for 24 hours in a row? Right?
Or, and how long have you been publishing? Well, we've been publishing for less than a year. Well, what people don't see is that Mr. Beast has been publishing for more than 10 years, 3 videos a week at least, right? For a very long time. And he's been able to leverage the resources that he's getting.
Also,
right?
Mr. Beast has not been doing those kind of videos for the entire life of his YouTube channel.
Yeah, has been a lot of gaming, right?
Yes, he used to do Call of Duty videos.
Yeah.
So look at this, right? We talked about the 3 elements, right? We got the audience, we have the team and the money, right? And then we have established relationships, right? So Mr. Beast today has all 3, right? But he didn't start there, right? And in the first few years, I think it was the first year, he only had about 100 subscribers or something like that, where his So those are the things that we need to compare ourselves first. And once we understand that, and the truth is hard to understand, because we might be running a very successful business on the back end, but then that not necessarily is going to translate into a great content strategy because you haven't started yet. So we got to start publishing consistently, right? To be able to gather data and start improving, right? And then we can assign the different resources, the team, and so on. And to be able to do that, then we need systems and processes and understand the principles behind the publishing, because if that's not in place, then we're not going to be able to scale and sustain that over time, which is what brings the audience and the relationships and the safety net and the conversations with people, right? So it's this incredible circle that happens, but it's really challenging to face that truth at first, right? Which is that gut punch that we had after that meeting, because there were 8 opportunities right in front of us, right? And because one person were like, I don't see your safety net content, right? Where are you? Like, what's happening here? Then immediately the report went from here all the way to the floor, and that's it. No business was done. So we're like, should we continue like that? Or should we actually go out and create this system for ourselves that we can be present every single day? And today, we mentioned about that event, and it was fun because at the end of the day, we met this one guy that he publishes books, and he was, one of the people that's going to interview us in the future, right? So this guy was like, I was checking your content, guys. Like, that was super cool. Everybody goes and do that, right? Everybody goes and do their homework, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're gonna check you out, and they're gonna resonate with your message, or they're not gonna resonate with your message, and that's okay. We either need a yes or a no, because that just filters the audience, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to be present, every single day.
I love how you brought up Mr. Beast, because I remember I was in a clubhouse room with him one time, and he gave a piece of advice that was so simple and yet so brilliant. He said the only way to screw up on YouTube is to stop publishing videos.
There you go. Yeah.
And it speaks to like what you guys did before with the 45-day live challenge, where at the beginning of your story, when we started this show, you guys spoke about how like you went live for 45 days, and then you challenged everyone else to do the same. The only way to screw up on content is to stop doing it.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Absolutely. And it's funny because the first time we did the 45 live, we got results, and then we stopped doing it. And guess what? When we stopped, we didn't see results. And then we told the story at an event. It was actually a funnel hacking live, and the group of people that we were with, they were like, "Wow, that is great! So you guys did it again, right?" And we look at each other, we're like, wow, no, not really. We probably should do it again, right? And we did it a second time, and guess what? We got more business out of that. So, I mean, it is clearly the trend, right? I mean, every time we've done it, something good happens, right? And now, since we had the podcast and we've been now extremely consistent for the last year and a half, we see results as well. So it's like the trend is there. Like if we are creating content, right? And with these principles and foundations in place, good things are going to happen, right? At the end of the day, we need to take action. And I don't want to discourage the listener right now, right? You don't need a big audience to make money. It's not about that. That is the first thought that comes into mind, because probably all the people that you follow has big audiences, right? But you don't need a big audience to start making money. Like Ben said, right? It's a blessing having a small community, 100 people. Guess what? You can actually talk to everyone, each one of them, personally on a call to get feedback, to discover what are their pains, how can you help them. And in there, it's a perfect moment to transition to, hey, guess what? I can actually solve this problem for you, right? And
Right.
like Steve Sims says, he's like, once that is right there, once you can solve the problem, guess what? The payment, the invoice is not an issue anymore. So
Right.
you gotta find that, and you find that through communication with these people. But how do you build their rapport to get them on a call with you? Through content.
And I love how what you're talking about like ties in. Like at the beginning of this, you talked about how like you were motivated by money, and all of a sudden you're like, where's the business? Where is everybody?
Yeah.
And what you're talking about now is that like you are motivated by the actual movement of helping people, and then the money comes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's interesting like how you can't really like, can you explain that, or is that just like how the universe works or how business works?
I mean, there's a book called 0 to 1, right? Is written by Peter Thiel, who is one of the co-founders of PayPal with Elon Musk, right? So this guy, one of the things that I remember the most out of this book is that he talks about you need to sell no matter what. When you're starting, whether you're a startup, whatever, you need to sell. Like, is the livelihood of your business. If you don't have cash flow, cash coming in, right, and then investing the cash in other resources, your business is gonna die, right? And that is an issue that personally, it's a mindset, right? It's a mindset that yes, you need money, but then I don't want to feel guilty for asking for money. And that's where it comes. Well, then you got to do something that you're so passionate about, right? That then that exchange of money, it just becomes necessary for you to do this because, I mean, you know you're providing this service for other people. But the issue is when we started, for example, personally, it was more myself than my brother, because my brother, he was working in sales at the moment. I had a lot of garbage in my head regarding money. I was like, oh man, I feel so guilty asking for the sale because I feel like I'm just taking something away from somebody else, right? And it does take a mind shift. I mean, we've been in conversations with Steve Larson, Myra Golden, like just listening about how they talk about money and how it is actually necessary for you to be able to help them. Because without money, guess what? You cannot build a sustainable business. If you're charging too little, guess what? You need to sell massive volumes, just like Walmart does, to be able to sustain that thing. And when it's a one-man operation, or in our case, when it was a two-man operation, you're not going to go nowhere if you sell, just like a $50 product to a small audience. Right? It's going to be very difficult to sustain that business. So you got to be okay with asking for your worth, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I really want to help you out, but I need this transaction to happen at the end of the day, because that is our livelihood at the as well, right? So it's a mindset that needs to happen. A lot of people are afraid of asking for money, and I would say, ask yourself why, right? Like, why is it that you have that belief in there? I personally thought I was just taking advantage of other people. When I changed that mindset to, I'm doing a disservice if I'm not offering this solution to these people that actually clearly need it, then I just need to offer them, right?
Yeah, I gave this metaphor to someone who I was on a Zoom call with. I view it as imagine someone is weightlifting or someone is a bodybuilder. It's actually detrimental if someone keeps lifting weights at the same number. And if someone lifts a heavier number, it's actually painful. The muscles begin to tear. And the same is true for prices. What happens when we move up to another price? We think to ourselves in the same mind, like we're going through mental barriers. But that is part of the body growing, and that's part of ourselves growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. That has been the biggest probably like shift that we were able to make to be able to build and start building the business and building the team, right? Because at some point we got to transition from freelancers to actual company, right?
Yeah.
And that's a conversation and be okay, right? So a lot of it is like, okay, what is the result that my client is getting? What is the things that they're gaining, right? Because we talk about profit, right? What is the thing that they're gaining? And we have a really awesome story with one of the CMOs that we've been able to help. They run a $200 million real estate company, right? And this guy was out there creating content 80 hours a month. He was running around with his phone, trying to record his like team members and the testimonials from the people. And he was just doing lives, right? 80 hours a month, a CMO of a $200 million company, right? And that's how much he believed in content. He did this for an entire year, right? He was lost, like many of us are, right? And then when we jumped on the call with him, we were like, hey, the only time that we need you creating is 4 hours. And he goes, 4 hours like a week? I'm sold, done, right? So no, 4 hours a month, right? For him, getting his time back was so important because now he's able to invest that time into his team, right? He's able to invest that time into new deals, into new relationships, into things that is also going to bring more profit and sales to the company, right? While taking care of the content side of things, right? It was a massive mental lift because there's a process that he plugs in, right? And he gives the time back. So, if you ask him,
that must feel like a huge, like actual physical weight off of him.
Yeah. And not having to worry about what to say, how to say it, and, talk about tripling output of content as well, right? So not just the assets itself, but it's like, if you ask him, like, how much is your time that we're giving you back worth, right? That's what, 76 hours back. How much can you do? How much can you influence your team to go out and do that? For them, it means millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Because they're able to put that in place, right? And they were able to put this incredible system in place that before was impossible because his entire time was into this, right? So as entrepreneur, right, we got to think about that, right? How much is my time worth, right? Because sometimes, the question is, do we actually want to do the other things that are moving the needle in my business, or I'm just distracting myself by creating these pieces of content, right? That's another one that is really important because we sometimes hide behind feeling, hey, I'm busy, I'm actually creating, but at the same time, it might be detrimental because you're not paying attention to the other activities. So there's going to have to be a time where you actually let go of that and be like, sounds good. You guys or whoever I hire, go run with it, right? I assign a time frame and then I actually go do that. So when we're in this entrepreneurial journey, sometimes we're so scared of that next phase, right? Because there's no clarity, because maybe we're dealing with imposter syndrome, right? And those are things that are natural in an entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
But you gotta recognize that and then tackle it head on.
I want to talk about that phase of like actually putting up the content and getting it out there. Pardon me. Because thank you. Because what I often think about sometimes, like when some of my very favorite YouTube videos at this point are over 10 years old. And so I know I'm old. And for myself, I've often thought, like, what would happen if I was to disappear from the earth? These interviews would be my legacy. Everyone would be able to look back because almighty Google keeps the YouTube machine going. These interviews would be my legacy. And so can you talk to us more about like the actual benefit of like the pathway in a business of turning the content into like the person finding it into profit? Because I think a lot of times people have trouble seeing like, how does my time investment in this video, into making this video that's very difficult, turn into a person coming into my business? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I'm gonna paint this in a funnel way, right? If people are familiar with advertising, you got top of funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, right? Bottom of the funnel is what is the closest to usually being sold. So kind of like the hottest leads. And then top of funnel is usually colder audiences. Well, content works very similar to in that sense, right? A lot of the content, most of the content that we put out there is to maybe catch the attention of people that are problem aware, but they're not very solution aware yet, right? They don't know, okay, I have this problem of I spend 80 hours a month trying to create content, right? And I cannot actually take care of my business. And then when I'm taking care of my business, I cannot take care of my content, right? Because I'm doing the stuff in the business. So, but they're like, what do I need to do? How can I solve that issue? And then that's when your content comes out, right? And grabs their attention, right? I'm actually telling this story right now. And I tell, well, guess what? If you want to learn how to maximize your efforts instead of spending 80 hours a week, right? Every 80 hours a month, right? Trying to create all this content. What if you could do it just for 4 by implementing the systems and processes that we use to build the machine that now produces over 400 pieces of content a month for us, only doing the podcast 3 times a week, right? And that's it. That's all we do. Well, people are going to be like, that sounds interesting. 400 pieces of content a month, and you're only putting, right, like 3 hours a week. That's pretty good, right? Imagine you're working a 40-hour work week. That leaves you 37 hours of the week to dedicate to, let's call it, needle movers. Well, that is for that audience at the top. We're trying to catch their attention. And then as they go into your world, now you can guide them. If you have a Facebook group, right? Now they're middle of the funnel leads right there. They know the problem, they know the solution, they know you have the solution. Now you're building trust and you're trying to take them from a point A to B. So you can actually put a specific type of piece of content inside of your Facebook group that tells you, hey, this is step number 1. Let's go. One of the principles that you need to understand is the publishing pyramid. Well, this is video number 1 that explains the bottom of the publishing pyramid. This is the second stage, third stage, fourth stage, right? And you tell them, starts here. And sorry, my girlfriend is like calling me right now. Like, I'm sorry.
He's looking at his Apple Watch like, oh man, she's texting me right now.
Yeah, it's like vibrating like crazy.
Clearly, I'm not friends with your girlfriend on Facebook. Otherwise, she would know.
She would know. Clearly, she would be in the interview, right? I'm telling you, she doesn't even follow me, man.
It's funny. My wife has no social media like on her phone or iPad at all. So complete opposites.
Yeah. But to recap here, right? To finish the thought process, you are guiding them at that point. Once you grab their attention, your job is to guide them to, hey, this is how I can set you up for success. And the next step that you need to take is work with me, right? And that is through a series of calls to actions, right? That you need to put in your content. Again, you always need to have offers in your content and make the content. Be very conscious of what stage is the content that you're making, right? Is it a top of funnel type of content that I'm making, right? That I'm putting on Facebook, on YouTube, X, Y, and Z. Once they enter your ecosystem, now you start showing them the more middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel type of content, right?
Yeah.
I use the advertising terminology just because that's what happens when you run ads. You run a cold audience, top of funnel, right? You could run that. And then the people that show interest, you retarget them with a middle of a funnel type of content, right? Now you're talking about the problem and the solution. And then if they take an action, let's say they add to cart your product, whatever, or they went to your application page and they didn't fill it up completely, you target them with the bottom of the funnel piece of content, which wouldn't be actually, it wouldn't be, hey, I got this solution for your problem. No, at this point, it's like, hey, I saw you went to the page to fill up the application, but you didn't finish it. What's up, right? What questions can I answer, right? To make your decision better, to help you jump on a call. And that's the type of content that you're going to be creating at the bottom of the funnel. So that's why I use the advertising terminology in that sense. But you got to put your customer journey, right? What is step 1? How do they get into my ecosystem? And how can I slowly take them on a journey until they can work with me, right? Some people know this as the value ladder, right? Russell's Brunson value ladder. You got the free stuff. Then you got the $17 product. Then you got the 500 XYZ, right? The courses. Eventually, they end up in your $10,000 mastermind.
And it's just that journey of building trust. Like someone finds like, I was looking for YouTube videos on like, how do I solve this problem with OBS? And let's say, for example, you are a tech business. You could solve my problem with OBS, and then your video could mention or conclude with, and if we solved your problem, then you should totally follow our course on so and so and so. That has all the wonderful tech tips that you could ever want and could lead you to host your own show on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
And like that's one example that I just like had off the cuff in my head.
I actually, sorry. I know I'm like interrupting you here, but this is an example. Oh, I'm like not even a mic anymore.
Yeah.
You don't get mic.
Throw my mic away.
We got two hot mics here on the show today.
Yeah, this is an example I came across the other day that I loved. It was great, right? I was looking how to learn HTML and CSS, right? And I came across YouTube a video that it was 4 hours. It was literally a crash course on learning HTML and CSS, totally for beginners. Guess what? As soon as I opened this video and I started watching the first like 30 seconds, I love what the guy did in there. He's like, hey, it's the holidays. And since, I just released my courses, I thought I would give you the first 4 hours of my courses totally for free so you can actually get to learn. It's my gift to you. That's it. That's what he said. That is an incredible call to action, right? I didn't watch the 4 hours of the content, right? I plan to eventually when I get the time. But in my mind, I was like, wow, this is just a piece of the bigger puzzle, right? So he's teaching me 4 hours right now. And this is going through my head and without even watching the content. I'm like, he put in the work, and actually he put in the work to build the course, but then he grab a piece of it, multi-purpose.
And he probably filmed like one little snippet video and then put that at the beginning of his 4 hour teaching and then put it on YouTube.
Exactly. But in my mind, I was like, wow, he put the 4 hours of work to be here, to give me this for free, to teach me. And he also has a course. I immediately clicked on the website. I was like, oh, let me check the course, how much it is, right? I was like, it's amazing. And it was such a soft call to action, if you want to put it that way. It wasn't like, hey guys, go and get my course. No, it was like,
I would call it a 4 hour teaser trailer.
It's a 4 hour teaser trailer right there. Absolutely. And I started reading the comments out of curiosity, and people were like, these 4 hours are absolutely amazing. They're going to teach you so much. I'm going to go get the course right now. A lot of the comments. And I was like, that is absolutely genius right there. How many people can actually do that? Build a course and then just grab the first part of each segment, right? And create an introduction. Hey guys, I just want you to really get a win. I want you to understand this principle of the publishing pyramid. So I want to give you the first hour for free. Here it is. Check it out. If you want to know more about the courses, go to contentsprofit.com, for example.
Yeah. And what's cool too, right? Like we talk about your content being a filter for your market, right? Sometimes, and a lot of the conversations that we've had is we throw that net, right? And we have to grab everybody. Like that's the conversation, right? We gotta grab everybody. And then if somebody doesn't watch, it's like, we feel so bad. I'm like, that's a good thing, right? We want either yeses or nos. They're as valuable as yeses because they're pointing you in the right direction, right? So for example, for that specific example, whoever doesn't see the 4 hours, that's not the right client, right? For those who watch the entire 4 hours, that's the people that you want in your course because they're going to take action and they're going to be successful and they're going to send you a testimonial and then it's proof of concept for you and your business, right? So that's right. So it's a little bit of a different take on entertaining, right? Because entertaining, normally there's no call to action, following this thing, and you're not filtering an audience for intent of buying, right? Which is very key when you're trying to do this very specific thing, right? And then after that, obviously, we go into the, hey, are we actually willing to do that, right? Like for example, we use our content in a very specific way, not only as a top of funnel, right, for the show going out, right? But also we leverage the fact that we bring our guests and they're people that we want to develop a relationship with. create a working relationship. Maybe they're a dream client, right? Who knows? There's different things, but we can also leverage that relationship building aspect on the content side of things, right? So we feel really comfortable and we actually feel fulfilled by creating this type of content. That's a massive plus because it's going to help us be consistent, right? So that's the other thing. It's like, man, I'm not convinced. I remember when we used to help the fitness studios with their videos, we actually went to location to actually film them doing their content, right? And it was just 4 hours a month, by the way. Let's bring them into perspective. 4 hours a month. It was a pain to bring them to actually coordinate the day to record these things. Once they got there, it was a pain for them to choose what they wanted to talk about, right? And it was all laid out in there for them, right? To be able to do it. Once we started doing it, right, it was a pain because they were not comfortable with the message. They were not comfortable. Maybe they didn't really believe too much in the company that they were talking, because all that brings, doubts. If you really believe on what you're doing, it's going to be simple to actually go out and share stories of this thing, right?
Right.
So it was so much friction to do this, right? And at the end of the day, when content was going out, even though they said it out of their mouths, they were like, no, take it down, right? In several occasions. And so that is so much friction because they're not enjoying the process, right? This is something that is adding friction to them. So maybe that's not the right content for them to create. But at the end of the day, we got to identify what is that thing that we really enjoy doing, right? And figure out a way on how to produce it, right? So
that's fascinating, because like you can't. It has to be spoken from the soul. It can't just be like, oh yeah, anyone can BS themselves on camera. It has to be like much like we talked about at the beginning, where we like immediately started business and you were going for money, but you can't just be motivated by money. You can't just like hot press videos out the window. It has to come from the soul.
And keep in mind, everybody, again, if we talk about the publishing pyramid, if you have resources, right, and
what is the publishing pyramid?
And you're a CEO, right, and you have the resources to do that. And we're gonna break it down in a second, but if you have those resources where they tell you, hey, just show up and we need to talk about this, this, and this, right, and then you have the machine running because you have the resources and the team to do that, absolutely, because that's their job. But when we're starting, right, we need to make sure that what we're saying and what we're doing, we actually enjoy doing it, because if not, it's not going to happen. And I assure you that CEO is going to enjoy talking about that because it's their company that they have to run, for example, right? So what's the publishing pyramid?
What is the publishing pyramid? I have many more questions, but let's start with the simple one. BIZBROS, what is the publishing pyramid?
Yeah, so the publishing pyramid is a framework that we've been able to develop in the last year, which is it has turned into a keynote. It actually was born out of in a Catherine Jones episode of 9 at 9. Like, she asked us like, hey, how do you guys, see publishing? And the framework came out, right? It was one of the things that, as you're
is one of the beautiful things of publishing and creating content, that when you're putting your thoughts into words, sometimes these magical things happen that it's like, wow, I now can see it clearly, right? Like just vocalizing your thoughts. It's like, I never saw it that way. And when we put those thoughts that we had into words in Catherine Jones' episode, she was like, so it's like a pyramid. And we're like, whoa, we just it's like, that makes so much sense, right? Yeah. And imagine if we wouldn't have published. Imagine if we just would have kept that in our heads. Right, there would be no framework, no keynote speaking gigs, no speaking at Marley Jack's VIP day at her Content Machine Live. So, so many opportunities missed just because we didn't put that into words.
So the publishing pyramid has 4 elements, like main elements. There's a ton of others inside of the pyramid, but there's 4 main ones, right? And we got to understand it from the top, bottom, and then we got to execute from the bottom up if we want to conquer that pyramid, right? So at the very top, what we see is, let's do Garyvee, for example, right? We see the content that Garyvee is currently publishing in every single platform. The guy has 3 TikTok-specific editors, right? That's at least 10K right there. Easy, right? So we see the resources. We see people publishing massively and the resources out there on what they do, right? So and then we strive to try to mimic that, and then we fail because we don't have the resources. So we got to understand, what are our resources? What is my currently position like in my business, and what can I invest, whether that's money or time, right? After we identify what that resource is, either money or time, then we got to see what is the capacity that I have to actually fulfill on my content scenario, whatever that looks like, right? Either video, stills, whatever, right? So if it's time, what is your own capacity to actually execute, right, on that process or that idea that you have in place? If it's money, right, what are the pieces that I need to put in place to actually execute my dream? So let's say YouTube channel, right? What are the resources that we might have? Well, if it's money, right, we need a video editor, right? We might need scripts, right? If somebody that makes your script, if you want to outsource that, right? If it's your time, sounds good. I need to develop the script for my video. I need to record the video. I need to go on location and do the video there. I got to edit that video, right? So we got to understand those pieces and what is your own capacity. So what are you assigning that? Are you assigning 5 hours a week? Are you assigning X amount of dollars per month? Like, what is it, right? Once we understand that, then the next phase is like, how consistent, right? It's consistency. How consistent can I be over a long period of time, right? Put a massive goal out there. For us, the first going like 45 live, we decided to go for 45 days straight, right? Whether you conquer or not, that's fine. That's an indicator, right? We don't fail. We just collect samples, right?
We just collect data.
Exactly. So what is going to be your consistency commitment? So for somebody that has a ton of resources, let's say like the CMO that we've been able to help, right? His personal consistency, right, is 4 hours a month. That's what he decides to do. As far as the content output, he's consistent multiple times a day in multiple platforms, right? So what is that you're committing to do for a long period of time? And then at the very bottom, the base of the whole pyramid, right, is your message. What am I actually talking about? What is the thing that I'm communicating? Going to what Fonzie was saying, see the content as a funnel, right? Am I doing top of funnel? What is it? Like, who am I talking to? What phase are they in? What is the type of things what are the stories I'm telling? So that is the very bottom of it. So once we understand all those pieces, right, now we can start executing because you created that commitment, right? So define your message. So what are the stories that I'm actually going to share, right? I am going to execute consistently over a long period of time. You already have that number. You already have that figure. My capacity, sweet. You're executing on that capacity, and the resources, and just assign the resources, which is your time or the money that you're going to do to invest. And this applies to every type of publishing that you do. As far as like, if you want to do a podcast, sweet, do a publishing pyramid for your podcast. If you want to do a YouTube channel, do your publishing pyramid for your YouTube channel. It applies at every stage of the business that you're in, whether that's, I'm not publishing anything right now and I don't have any money, right? Because you're using your time. 2, I'm a multi-million-dollar company and I can assign resources. It applies to every single scenario. So see how beautiful that thing is? We need to create like this, like little like publishing pyramids and just like start adding pieces as people execute.
Yeah.
So good.
I like how you map this out, because it's a good conversation of, like it allows you to sit down and say like, okay, now like what resources do you have? Like what cards do you have in your hand? Because comparing yourself to, again, calling back to earlier, we talked about like, oh, I want to be like Mr. Beast. You don't have the resources that Mr. Beast does, so calm down. But we do that. We compare ourselves to people who don't have like the same cards in their hand or the same publishing pyramid that we might have. Is that an accurate summation of the publishing pyramid?
That is perfect. That is exactly how, in part, we discovered, right? We were comparing ourselves and trying to operate at the level of, Gary Vaynerchuk, you name it. Usually any person that we follow, right, that most people follow, are where they want to be eventually. So we wanted to be there with content. And guess what? We did the mistake of starting there, right? I mean, and not necessarily because we weren't producing at all like he was doing, but in our effort, the capacity that we had, the resources that we had at the moment, we were trying to operate at that level, but it wasn't there, right? We didn't have the resources to have the same outcome as he did. So it just we got discouraged. We got burned out. It's like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
This is horrible.
Done.
What can we do now? What's next? And then it started, right? And a big part of it is I still am somehow like somewhat of a perfectionist, right? But before it was way worse. And we did a lot of videos for events and all this stuff. And I do love a good production. I do love a video that looks, buttery smooth.
I could never tell by the soundboard in front of you.
Yeah, maybe, right? Like I do like that quality stuff. So when we were starting, that was a big issue because I wanted it to be perfect, right? It's like, no, it's not perfect enough. We're not going to put it out there. And that is like the biggest mistake you can make, honestly, ever, right? But and I want people to understand perfectionism is not the same as, having pride in the content that you're creating. You can be proud of the content that you're creating. It just doesn't need to be 100% perfect because it's never going to be 100% perfect. There's always room for growth. But when we are just trying to get it in that way, super perfect, we're never going to put it out because we're always going to find an excuse to say it's not good enough. And that's what happened to us. We actually we wanted to record a podcast. We started recording a podcast about like 2.5 years ago at this point, almost 3 years. It wasn't Content is Profit. We called it Brews and Bros, actually, that one. So it was called Brews and Bros, and we would record pretty late at night, but we had, multiple cameras and the light, like so much stuff that when it came to editing, there was so much friction. And we recorded 5 episodes. Some of those, we were like half an hour in and we would make a mistake. And it's like, nah, it's not good enough. Let's start all over again.
Ew.
What exactly? Ew. Exactly. Ew.
Ew.
Not just the editing, the setup. It took us about an hour to
setup.
Just do the whole
It was
setup.
just like an hour because we didn't have studio space, so we had to set everything up in my room at the moment. And guess what? Like we were just trying to operate at the level of resources that we didn't have. Right? We didn't have the time to put there. We didn't have the team to take care of that type of production. So when we started the 45 live, we're like, okay, goodbye perfectionism. We cannot be perfectionists. Like that's a big no. So what is going to be your new mantra? How are we going to take care of that? And we just started telling ourselves quality of the message over quality of the production, right? And that's when we realized, there are webinars out there, right, that are literally a talking head for an hour. And you just take the whole hour and you watch it all, and then you pay them $1,000 to see more videos of a talking head because they are so freaking good and they're delivering so much value and their message is great. Yet there are 3-minute videos in YouTube that they have incredible production value, right? Like they are filmed with this red cameras, $50,000 cameras that, okay, the content looks amazing, but I mean, it's not sharing anything meaningful. I'm not connected to this content, and a minute in, I'm out. I'm like, goodbye. I don't want to watch any more of this stuff, right? So when you put it in that context, and you realize, I don't need this production value at all to start, right? I just need a good message. Let me focus on my message. How do we focus on our message? By testing it, putting it out into the world, seeing people's feedback, right? And having conversations. Talk to the people you want to serve. Again, going back to the small audience is an advantage. Talk to them, realize what are the problems, how can I solve them, and then craft your message around that. Guess what? Once you have that and you start going up the pyramid, you start closing more business, you start gaining more resources, then you can invest and, add the production value and make it look nice, buttery smooth, whatever you want that content to look like.
Put nice artwork up.
When you have those resources, like now it's going to look absolutely amazing. But you're going to have the confidence. You're going to have your message, right? And probably most important, you're going to have a team that's going to take care of all that stuff. And you're not going to have to do it, right? So, I mean, I'm just going to throw a call to action here for you guys. If you guys need help with YouTube, go to Ben. Ben is going to help you out, and it's going to be the best resource that you're going to have in your team.
Oh, man, I should hire you to do my call to actions.
Hey, why not?
What you say, like, resonates so much with me because like it is the origin of this show. I think there was like a 5 or 10 minute span of me coming up with the name of this show and then making the logo with some spray paint in Photoshop, because there was at least like 2 or 3 other shows that I did before this where I was like, okay, I have let perfectionism kill me so much that I don't want to let it halt me this time. We're gonna do a show, and we're actually going to do a show on the dates that I've committed to. So we're just gonna who in God's name has not rebranded before? So we can always rebrand, but we never did, and we just kept what we came up with the first time.
I love it. And that story that you're telling is resonating so much with us, right? Because when we started Contents Profit after the failed Brews and Bros, I just gotta add, I'm happy that we didn't keep going with Brews and Bros. We'll be like alcoholics by now. I mean, 3 times a week just drinking.
3 times a week drinking Brews and Bros, and 3 years out. Oh, forget it. It'll be horrible.
Nope. Yeah, I'll be like 10 times.
But doesn't everyone have that podcast where it's like, I'm glad I did this as a practice foundation, but God, exactly. I'm glad we're not doing it anymore.
That is one of those, shifts and samples that we had to collect, right? And here's what's cool about, starting and then starting to figure out, we have a concept called content evolution, right? Whereas when you start executing and then it's going to do, we had a client that they like throughout their relationship with us, they evolved 3 times because their message at the bottom of their pyramid was changing because their business was changing, right?
They went from Pikachu to Raichu. I'm not kidding.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
From Pichu to Raichu. They
went from Pichu to Raichu.
3 different times. And this is what's cool about it, though. Like, they started discovering that through the publishing. They never stopped, right? The message was just evolving, and the content around that message continued to evolve because they had the relationship, the resources to actually do that and communicate that with the team, which was us at the time, right? So that's so cool. And same thing with the processes inside of the show. In our last workshop, we actually showed the first episode framework, and then we showed the last episode framework and a cheat sheet that we run the show with. And the elements are completely different. The way that we run the show is completely different from the first time that we did. And that's what's going to happen. And guess what? We're about to come to episode 200. And because there's a team now behind, we were like, what would a dream, 200 plus episode would look like, right? Ooh. We can now dream to do that. And we're like, sounds good. Here's what you guys have to execute upon, right? Because the resources are there to do it. And we were able to evolve to that point to do that. So now the maps and how we're going to do it, we're going to tackle different platforms as well, more than we already do. And it's an exciting process because as you start executing, there's things that are going to become staples that you're going to be like, I resonate with it. My audience resonates with it. My guests are going to resonate with it, right? Let's keep it, right? Maybe you're going to try something that is not sticking and sounds good. Let's move it out, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, we got to execute consistently to get to that point, just like you've done with this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I feel like can't be necessarily taught. It's something that has to be almost experienced in a way that you have to find that sort of calling. Like we talked about, like everyone's got that podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I the other day I saw a post. I don't remember exactly who did it, but it resonated. And it is, they were calling it, you got to ask the $1,000 questions, right? Or I think it was $1,000 or $10,000 questions. Is your time worth, right? Maybe $100 that you could be paying somebody to do X, Y, and Z task, right? And when you're a perfectionist, you spend the time doing that. And you're wasting your time because you could be solving the $1,000 questions, right? What are the $1,000 questions that require your attention? So when you're going to do a task, ask yourself, is this $1,000 task, right? No? Okay. Then I'm going to put my attention somewhere else. Does this task need to be done? Yes, I delegate it. I find someone that can do it for me. Is not a need. Well, guess what? You eliminate it. You don't do it at all. So ask yourself that question, right? How much is worth your time? right? Is your time worth, right, $200, $500 an hour, whatever you want it to be? And then ask yourself that, okay, is this a $200 task right here? No, move on to the next one. And that will help you, honestly, to leave that perfection mentality aside.
Absolutely.
And wanting to have control over everything.
I think that's a good segue into like one last question I would love to ask you guys, which is, you know, we've talked a little bit about the pyramid, you know, how can we like start a great YouTube channel? We identify like what is actually our resources that we have, what are the cards in our hand that we had to play, and go from there. Not the stage that someone else is at. We don't start from there. Now let's talk about what are some great life hacks. What are your great secrets? What are your publishing tips and time hacks that you would recommend to that person that has now identified like the cards that are in their hand? What are the great secrets to publishing great content for profit?
That's
Are you gonna throw the buzz at me too?
no, I mean I got buzz. Yeah,
I've thrown the ball. It's just who catches it.
yeah. So I'm gonna go first with that, right? Like I don't want to say hacks or secrets, right? Because I was very, attracted to those words when we started our entrepreneurial journey, and I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, I was just chasing shiny objects, right? So are there strategies out there that are going to help you? Yes, 100%, right? And there could actually be 10, 15, 20 strategies out there that could help you, but the issue is staying consistent with those things, right? So instead of sharing a hack or a secret, right, I'm just going to share one of the most probably important principles that I personally have learned throughout our journey that by sticking to it has helped us out, right? And that is consistent action, right? Just consistent action, whatever it is, the strategy that you pick, right? Whether that is YouTube and you decide to do it once a week, be consistent with it. Because so many times people are like, oh, let me just try for a month. It didn't work out. Let me just go for the next thing. What is the next webinar that says the 3 hacks for X, Y, and Z? Let me watch that, invest in that. Try it a month, didn't work. Go to the next one, right? Like, how many times have you fallen for that trap, right? I mean, I'm not going to call it a trap. How many times have you fallen for that? I'm not going to lie. Using hacks and secrets and all this, like, it does work. It is.
I wouldn't even call it a trap. That's a human trait to just like, oh man, like I'm over here now and now I'm over here now, like following the trends, following what's popular, like staying dedicated to one craft is indeed the way to go.
Absolutely. And it does spark curiosity. Every time I hear like, oh, this hack, I'm like, oh, what is it? Right? Like, I'm excited. I love all things shiny objects, right? But we didn't see results until we focused on one thing and then we took action in that one thing for a long period of time, right? Because that's what is going to allow you to test whether it actually works or not. Just 1 month action is not going to do anything for you. So that is what I want to share with people, right? Go and find something that you enjoy doing. For us, is the podcast 3 times a week live. We really love doing that, right? And then we have our M2M framework to multi-purpose the content. And the question becomes, can we do that on a consistent basis for the long term? Yes, okay, let's stick to that. Let's do that. Let's test it out. Once we have more resources or we free more of our time, then we can maybe look into another strategy and go with that one long term. But a lot of people just miss that, right? Like they just go fast paced. And I don't know if it is because, we live in the social media world where everything is super fast. We see people being successful. All of a sudden they're having $100,000 days and we don't see what happens before that, right?
We don't see the bottom of the iceberg.
Exactly. We don't see the bottom of the iceberg. So we just want things fast. And that's what has people jumping from one shiny object to the other. So commit to consistent long-term action.
By the way, I'm taking notes here from Fonzie too. So I wrote 2. I got 2. One along the lines of what Fonzie was saying. And the third one is something that really helped us with the cash flow side of things, right? So the one that I want to add to what Fonzie is saying, the only way that we're going to achieve that consistency, right? Obviously, you know, he said finding something that you enjoy and doing it, right? I put here, assign a framework. But the other thing is remove the friction from that one thing. Find the things that you are catching yourself, you know, from stopping you to do it, and remove that. Be like, okay, how can I do that? So for us, right, in our side of things, when we did the show, one friction point was editing, right? Because Fonzie was editing for a lot of people at the time, our clients, right, at the time. And he's like, I have no time or desire to do this. I'm going to hate my life if I'm actually going to handle our content, right? So we're like, sounds good. What is what type of content that we can produce that requires zero editing? Sounds good. Live it is. So that's why we decided to go live for 45 days, because there's no editing. Well, guess what? In our show, the actual execution of the show and the audio that comes out, it requires zero editing, right? So we're able, okay, we want an intro, let's do the intro live, right? We want sound stuff, let's, you know, we already had the equipment that we invested in, you know, almost a year before the show actually launched, right? Sounds good. It has some buttons here that we can assign sounds. That's why the sounds are there, right? Because we don't have to add anything on post-production. The only thing that does in post-production is we cut the beginning at the end and the audio goes out. It's part of the brand. It's become part of the thing. It's become of one of the things of why we're known.
I mean, today we recorded an episode that the guest, he was showing The Office and his mic got unplugged, right? So we couldn't hear him. And then to reset it, he left the room and then he came back. So that was like 3 minutes where the guest totally disappeared.
And the show continued.
Continued because guess what? That is part of exactly what we want to show. It's like, hey, it's okay to make those mistakes.
So for execution on consistency, I find those friction points. So you don't have to remove it completely, but if you like editing, for example, right? Should I hire somebody to actually take that from me so I can execute, right? Do I actually have the resources, right? And here's where the third point comes in is go to the source, go where the cash is, right? That's what really saved our business, because we went directly to create content with the people that we can serve, right? So that presents an opportunity for us to have a very quick sales conversation, referral conversation, and attach that sales process on the back end while we're still building the safety net content, right? So how do we actually build relationships, right? Is actually, well, for us is the show. But let's say you do a YouTube channel, right? And it's a video collaboration with somebody that you might be able to help, right? So that's something where the creative kind of comes into place. And it's so incredible how these three things, when we put it together as a show, right, could look however very differently for many other people, right? But when we took it as a show, it created that incredible experience. So another example that just came to mind, we were on this clubhouse room, and it was there were a wedding dress, a wedding flower setter or planner, right? They do
a wedding planner.
They do the flowers for weddings, right? So they're like, we have this Instagram account, and the only thing that they were doing was publishing pictures of the thing. They were beautiful, absolutely, but is that actually going to bring in business? Maybe. Like, it can serve as a safety net, but then there was no call to action or nothing, right? So they came in with a question. We were talking about 45 Live, right? About the challenge and going live for 45 days. And like, how can I actually apply this to my business? Like, I'm not going to sit down. They weren't feeling comfortable sitting down and talking about the type of flowers or whatever. One idea that came up was, do you have people coming to your store or setting these things daily? And they're like, yeah, sounds good. Do behind the scenes. Every single live is going to be behind the scenes on how you're actually creating these things that are so wonderful and so beautiful. Bring the audience into your process, and then throughout the process, tell them how to communicate with you, right? To this point, I hope they did that. Like, I don't really know what happened, but that is something how we can remove the friction, because there's no editing, there's no nothing. You literally go to Instagram Live and record the behind the scenes, and that lives there, right? And then now you're multiplying every single opportunity every single day. Guess what? The person that you're dealing the behind the scenes with, you can send that video to them. Somebody that is about to have a deal with you, that maybe had a call with you, they're going to send that video to them. Hey, by the way, this is what we did today. What do you think? go to the source. They're going to be like, oh my God, that's beautiful. It's going to speed up the process, right? So those are how we can connect it to like go to the source where the cache is that you can serve them. So, yeah, wrote him up here. I think that's pretty solid. I mean, we could keep going all night, but that's
we can absolutely keep going all night. And you know what? We may have to do a BIZBROS part 2 one day in the future. I got 2 fist bumps there, so
double appearance of my cool friends. Let's go. That's a win right there.
BIZBROS 2 coming soon to a theater near you.
Oh yeah, this summer.
Funny story. You mentioned movies where always in our heads we're always pushing the limits on how can we do the content side of things. One of my dreams has become to have a sitcom of the BIZBROS.
Oh, I thought you were going to be a movie star.
No, we don't necessarily need to act in the sitcom, but it's a sitcom called BIZBROS, and the entire journey of entrepreneurship and all these crazy stories that we have in the back end. That would be hilarious.
That would be fantastic
on a sitcom. So if you know anybody, they can choose. We can pitch this idea: Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon.
You should make it your own YouTube series.
Hey,
there you go. Doesn't even need to be long episodes.
That's true.
And that'll be hilarious. That can be the YouTube channel.
That'll be fun.
Ooh. Ben, we need to talk. Okay.
Yes, we do. Give me a hot second, and we can have the internet go away for a moment. We got a link that's scrolling here at the bottom of the screen. Could you tell us a little bit about that here for a moment?
Absolutely. If my glasses are working, it says contentisprofit.com. Right. So that is where they can find us. That's how they can join a little bit more, get closer to the family. When you get there, you're going to see a landing page, and we're giving you a guide for the minimum viable content, which is the principle that pretty much kickstarted everything for us. Right. It is what we use to remove the friction, is the principle that we use to be consistent with our content. And we want to give that to you. So just go in there. And once you join there, go as well and go to Facebook and Content is Profit. Search for that and join the Facebook group. It's a community that we're building. We have people like the one and only Ben right here. And we are actually revamping the community. At first, we used it to run the 45 Live Season 3, the challenge with everybody. And now we're revamping the community a little bit. We want to give back to everybody, right? We want to teach people about these principles, right? How can we help them accomplish their goals? We want to support you. We want to offer you the tools. We want to offer you the accountability. If we could run the race for you, we would do that as well. Unfortunately, we cannot. You are the one responsible for your own success, but we are going to do everything in our power to help you get as close as you can. And that is in the Content is Profit Facebook group. So just go and look it up, and we'll receive you with arms wide open.
With arms wide open. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been our very special episode with the BIZBROS. First time we had 2 guests on at once. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Ben. It has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you for letting us share the stories.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there's many more stories where those came from.
Oh, yeah.
We will be back next week for another special guest on My Cool Friends. We go live every Friday. You can catch us over on our YouTube channel. And much like the BIZBROS plugged, if you need help with your YouTube channel, then I am indeed your guy, the Yoda of YouTube over here in the box on your left-hand side. We are serving clients who are helping them grow and prosper from their YouTube channels, and we would love to see you flourish here in the 2021 as well. So until next week, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.